Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My name is Eva, and I once thought I had everything in perfect order. I held a respected position as head of marketing, had a loving husband, Caleb, and enjoyed a financially secure, stable life. I felt a sense of pride in managing our mortgage payments independently, which added to my sense of accomplishment. Family was at the heart of everything, and Caleb's younger brother, Felix, along with their mother, Regina, were always a part of our lives. Having lost their father years ago, the brothers' devotion to their mother deeply impressed me. It was a beautiful bond, and it made me admire Caleb even more for his loyalty to his family. Regina initially seemed to approve of me, engaging me in conversations about my work at family gatherings, often commenting with a nod, "Marketing, huh? Sounds important." It was comforting to feel welcomed and appreciated by Caleb's family, and I looked forward to becoming a true part of their tight-knit circle. The early years of our marriage were filled with happy weekends, festive meals, and spontaneous family game nights. One Thanksgiving at Regina's stands out in my memory, where the laughter and chatter created an inviting atmosphere that made me feel like I truly belonged. However, things began to shift during a New Year's Eve party at Regina's house. While I was in the kitchen refilling my wine glass, I overheard a conversation that started to change my view. Regina was making fun of Clara's affordable dress in the living room, mocking her as a single mother who was trying too hard to fit in with the elites. This moment made me reassess the family dynamics I had once admired. What I had initially seen as harmless teasing began to reveal a much more cruel side. Over time, Regina started to gather with Caleb and Felix to whisper and laugh about various family members and friends, making snide comments at others' expense. It became harder and harder for me to ignore. One Easter Sunday, I reached my breaking point. Regina was casually criticizing a relative's financial choices, and I could no longer stay silent. I stood up and confronted her, hoping to defend those who were the target of her subtle bullying. The room went quiet, and Regina, with a biting tone, dismissed my concerns, suggesting that I was overreacting. In that moment, I turned to Caleb, hoping for his support, but his lack of response was crushing. I had once seen these family gatherings as warm and loving, but now I began to see the undercurrent of cruelty beneath it all. After Caleb's disappointing reaction, family events became increasingly difficult for me. I often found myself sitting alone, nursing a drink while Caleb stayed by his mother's side. He would occasionally glance at me with an apologetic look, but never did he step away to offer the support I desperately needed. One evening, after enduring yet another uncomfortable dinner, I confronted Caleb. "Why can't you ever stand up to her?" I asked, my frustration spilling over. Leb, looking exhausted, ran a hand through his hair. "She's my mother, Eva. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell her she's being cruel. I want you to stand by me," I insisted. But he never did, and as time passed, I began making excuses to avoid these painful family gatherings. Whether it was a sudden work emergency or a migraine, I would find any excuse to escape the harsh whispers and cold stares. Just as I thought our situation couldn't become more strained, life threw a significant twist our way. I was pregnant. Discovering the pregnancy left me with a mix of emotions. Holding the test with shaking hands, I called out for Caleb, who came rushing in, concerned. When I showed him the test, his reaction, a mixture of shock and relief, pulled me into a brief hope that perhaps this new life might mend the growing fissures between us. However, the pregnancy proved to be anything but easy. I faced constant nausea and dizziness, with the looming threat of miscarriage hovering over me, forcing me into bed rest and eventually quitting my job as my condition worsened and my eyesight began to deteriorate, a rare but potentially permanent complication. During this vulnerable time, I felt Caleb drifting further away, often returning home late, if at all, leaving me to face my challenges alone. The day of my scheduled C-section arrived sooner than expected due to my vision issues making natural birth too risky. Lying on the operating table, filled with a blend of fear and anticipation, I asked for Caleb, only to be told by a nurse that he had chosen to wait outside. The surgery itself went smoothly, and hearing my son's first cries was a transcendent moment, filling me with an overwhelming rush of love. However, the joy was short-lived as Caleb eventually appeared in the recovery room, his discomfort and annoyance barely concealed. "Ava, we need to talk. "This isn't right," he began abruptly, his words dismissing the necessity of my surgery and lamenting the presence of men during childbirth as against old norms. This struck a deep chord of pain within me as he stormed out, claiming the hospital environment was too much for him. I was left alone, reeling not only from his words but also from the reality of our situation. The subsequent weeks were a haze of sleepless nights and constant feedings, with Caleb's presence becoming rarer, leaving me to navigate the challenging waters of new motherhood by myself. Ever since our son was born, Caleb barely helped with his care and often complained, "Can you shut him up?" he growled as our baby cried through the night. "I'm trying," I'd reply, my voice heavy with exhaustion. "He's teething, Caleb. It hurts him." But Caleb had no patience for it all. "All you do is focus on the kid. What about me? What about our sex life?" I was astonished by his lack of understanding and compassion, especially as I was still recovering from major surgery and running on minimal sleep. As the weeks turned into months, Caleb's dissatisfaction only grew one evening. While I was trying to soothe our fussy 7-month-old, he bluntly stated, "You need to go back to work." I was shocked. "What? But the baby?" I began. "We hire a nanny," he interrupted. "We can't keep living like this, Eva. We need the money." Despite wanting to argue that our son needed me, and that I wasn't ready to return to work, the resolute look in his eyes silenced me. With a heavy heart, I began job hunting. Finding work with my compromised vision was challenging. I eventually secured a position at a smaller company, although the pay was less than before. When I informed Caleb, his response was predictably dismissive. "That's it," he scoffed. "We're paying a nanny for this?" Tears welled up in my eyes. "I'm doing my best, Caleb. It's not easy with my eyesight," I pleaded. "Excuses," he muttered, walking away. This marked the beginning of my new reality. Rushing to work each morning, guilt gnawing at me as I left my baby with the nanny, struggling through the day with my limited vision, and then coming home to a resentful husband and a son who desperately needed my attention. Time passed in a blur of work, childcare, and escalating tension at home. Before I knew it, 3 years had gone by since my son's birth. Despite the difficulties, I cherished him deeply and found joy in his milestones. Family gatherings continued to be stressful, particularly because of Regina's behavior. She would perform the role of the doting grandmother when others were watching, but her disinterest was obvious. "Come to Grandma," she'd coo in a sweet voice, arms outstretched towards my son. Yet he would cling to me, turning his face away from this woman he barely knew. Regina's expression was sour. "What have you been telling him about me?" she hissed accusingly. "You're turning my grandson against me," I tried to explain, weary. "He just doesn't know you well, Regina. If you visited more often." But she would cut me off. "Don't you dare blame this on me," and storm off to complain to Caleb. On an ordinary Tuesday morning, my world was once again thrown off balance. Holding a pregnancy test, my heart raced as I saw the positive result. A wave of fear washed over me. My first pregnancy had been fraught with complications, and my health had been severely affected. Could my body handle another one? As I calculated the timing, I realized I was already well into my first trimester. It felt as though the decision had been made without my full awareness. With shaking hands, I called Caleb at work to share the news. His response was sharp and impatient. "What is it?" he asked.
"Caleb,
I began, my voice faltering. There was a long pause on the other end, followed by a dismissive tone. "Look, Eva, I'm busy. We'll talk later. Just don't quit your job, okay? We can't afford that." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone, feeling more alone than ever. Fortunately, this pregnancy wasn't as difficult as my first. The morning sickness was manageable, and my vision stayed stable. Allowing me to continue working, I was determined to provide for our growing family. But as my belly expanded, the gap between Caleb and me seemed to grow wider. He spent more time at his mother's house and often came home late. One evening, feeling drained from managing our toddler and the pregnancy, I asked Caleb for help as he walked in the door. "Hey, could you read him a story? I'm really tired," I asked, hoping for a little support. Caleb glanced at us, then at his watch. "Can't I? I promised Mom I'd help her move some furniture." "Don't wait up," he said, and without another word, he was gone, leaving me alone with our son and tears in my eyes. By the time I reached my 7th month of pregnancy, Thanksgiving was approaching. Guests began to arrive in the afternoon, including John and Mary, who immediately started helping. The house buzzed with the warmth of conversation and laughter. Just before dinner, the doorbell rang again, and it was Felix, Caleb's younger brother, except he wasn't alone. "Everyone, this is Serafina," Felix said, introducing his fiancée. The mood in the room instantly brightened with congratulations. Regina showed up shortly afterward, and her face lit up when she saw Serafina. During dinner, she lavished attention on Serafina, asking about her job as a manager at a national bank. "How prestigious!" Regina exclaimed, clearly impressed. Then, in a louder voice meant for everyone to hear, Regina added, "Serafina here makes $220,000 a month. Now that's the kind of daughter-in-law I've always dreamed of. Smart, beautiful, successful." Her words stung, especially when she shot a pointed look in my direction, adding, "Unlike some people who can only pop out babies and breed poverty." I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. Mary bristled next to me, clearly ready to defend me, but I gently stopped her, not wanting to escalate the situation. Regina didn't stop there. With a syrupy sweetness, she continued, "Why don't we all head to that new restaurant downtown? My treat, of course." Before I knew it, Regina, Caleb, Felix, and Aina were heading for the door. Caleb didn't even glance back. The cheerful mood of the evening evaporated, and soon the other guests made their excuses to leave. Only John and Mary stayed behind, their presence a quiet support in the now silent house. I declined their offers of help, insisting that they also needed to rest. Once they left, I sank into the couch, overcome with tears. As the hours trickled by, my sobs echoed through the quiet house, my hand resting on my growing belly, lost in thoughts of how my life had spiraled to this point. It was nearing dawn when I heard the front door creak open. Caleb stumbled in, reeking of alcohol and cigarette smoke, without a word, heading straight to our bedroom. With trembling hands, I picked up my phone and scrolled through social media. There, captured in a series of photos, were Regina, Caleb, Felix, and Serafina, all smiles at an upscale nightclub. The caption stung, "Best Thanksgiving ever." With my real family as my due date neared, a mix of excitement and anxiety filled me. The doctors had scheduled another C-section given the short interval since my last. Despite trying to focus on the arrival of our new baby, doubts about Caleb clouded my thoughts. One cold winter afternoon, I noticed Caleb unpacking bags full of summer clothes. Confused, I asked, "What's all this?" "Just saw a good sale, thought I'd update my wardrobe," he replied, avoiding my gaze. It didn't quite add up, but with the baby on the way, I pushed my suspicions aside. I had been saving diligently, ensuring we had enough for the mortgage, bills, and even a babysitter for our 4-year-old. Thankfully, my workplace had approved 3 months of unpaid leave. 5 days before my scheduled C-section, chaos erupted. I was resting when Caleb and Regina burst through the door, urgency in their steps. Following them to our bedroom, I found Caleb hurriedly packing the new clothes. "Caleb," I said, my voice rising with panic, "what are you doing?" "We're all going to Felix's wedding in Hawaii," he replied curtly. "But my C-section is in 5 days. Who's going to take care of our son?" I protested. "You'll manage, you always do," Caleb said coldly, zipping up his suitcase. Before I could utter another word, he and Regina were out the door, leaving me in stunned silence. Reality hit me like a tidal wave. Frantically, I checked our joint account, empty. All the money I had saved was gone. With shaking fingers, I called Caleb. "What?" he snapped when he finally answered. "The money. All our savings. Where is it?" I stammered. After a pause, his cold laughter filled my ear. "We needed it for Felix's wedding gift." "Don't be so greedy, Eva." Then the line went dead. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my abdomen. Looking down, I saw a puddle forming at my feet. My water had broken. Panic ripped through me as I realized the imminent risk to my pre-C-section scar. Clutching my phone with one hand and my belly with the other, I dialed emergency services. The hospital was a whirlwind of activity. Doctors shouting, machines beeping. I awoke hours later to the gentle beeping of monitors and Mary's tear-stained face hovering over me. "Ava!" she whispered, squeezing my hand. You're okay. The baby's okay. Slowly, the reality of what had happened set in. I had nearly lost my life. My baby had nearly been lost. 5 days after my emergency C-section, I was feeling surprisingly resilient, both physically and emotionally. The doctors were impressed with my recovery and promptly gave me the green light to head home. During this time, Caleb hadn't bothered to call once, not to check if I was alive nor to inquire about his new son. At that moment, I realized our marriage had irrevocably broken down. I reached out to John and Mary, asking if I could stay with them temporarily. They immediately welcomed me and my boys, offering not just a place to stay but the emotional support I desperately needed. As they doted on their grandsons, I took the opportunity to rest and, researching divorce lawyers while gathering necessary financial documents. A week after leaving the hospital, Caleb finally called. I ignored his first 5 calls, answering only on the 6th attempt. "Where the hell are you? Why aren't you at home?" he demanded, his voice a mix of anger and confusion. Calmly, I replied, "I'm at my parents' house with our sons. I filed for divorce, Caleb." His reaction was a mixture of disbelief and mockery. "Divorce? Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you?" He laughed bitterly. "Everything you've done?" I countered, anger rising. "Like abandoning me right before I gave birth or stealing our savings?" "Oh, get over it," he scoffed dismissively. "I'll pay you back, no problem. In fact, I don't even want to see you again. Do you know why? Because I'm going to be rich." He rambled on about a job offer from Felix's new wife, Serafina, who had promised to make him wealthy beyond belief through a new financial venture. "You never believed in me, Eva," he spat. "You always held me back. Well, guess what? I'm free now, and you're just a loser who can't see potential when it's right in front of her." The divorce proceedings were surprisingly swift. Caleb didn't contest much. He returned the money he had taken and agreed to pay alimony since I had been the one making the mortgage payments, evidenced by years of bank statements. The judge awarded me the house without hesitation. The day I moved back into what was now my house, Caleb was there packing his last belongings. He sneered as I entered with our baby and our toddler by my side. "Enjoy this dump while you can," he jeered, carrying a box. "I'll be in a mansion soon, swimming in cash. You'll see what you missed out on." As he left, a profound sense of relief washed over me. The house felt larger, brighter, and free from the shadow of his presence. A year and a half later, life had settled into a new rhythm for me and my boys. I had returned to work and found a balance between my career and motherhood. It wasn't always easy, but we were happy, healthy, and thriving. Then, on another ordinary Tuesday, my phone buzzed with a news alert that made my heart race. Local banker exposed as fraud, families in ruins. As I read the article, I couldn't believe my eyes. The story revealed that Serafina had been running an elaborate scam. She had convinced Caleb, Felix, and Regina to invest in a fictional financial company, urging them to take out massive loans, leaving them in financial ruin. They had even mortgaged Regina's house, pouring every penny they had into this non-existent venture. Serafina, it turned out, wasn't a banker at all. The office she had shown them was merely a rented space, a facade for her deceit. She disappeared with millions, leaving nothing but forged documents and shattered lives. To make matters worse, I found out they had also taken out an additional loan to fund Felix and Serafina's lavish wedding in Hawaii, the very wedding Caleb had abandoned us to attend. As I processed the devastating news, a flood of emotions rushed through me. Shock, disbelief, and if I'm being honest, a small sense of vindication. The fallout was catastrophic. Unable to repay their massive debts, they lost everything. Regina's house, their cars, and even their personal belongings were seized by creditors. They were left with nothing but crushing financial obligations. I learned from others that Regina had resorted to working as a cashier, barely making enough to cover a modest apartment and groceries. Caleb and Felix found themselves in dire straits, their dreams of wealth and success utterly shattered. I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of relief that I had divorced Caleb when I did, sparing my children and me from the financial devastation that had engulfed his family. Just when I thought I had moved on from all the pain and turmoil, my phone rang. It was Regina's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Eva," Regina's voice came through, sounding timid. a far cry from her usual authoritative tone. "We need your help," she pleaded, asking if they could stay with us. "The children need their father and grandmother," she insisted. "You can't turn your back on family in times like this." I took a deep breath, memories of the past flooding back. The Thanksgiving insults, the times I was left alone while pregnant and struggling, and all the moments they belittled and dismissed me. "Family," I said, my voice steady. "You weren't concerned about family when you left me alone, pregnant and in danger. You weren't concerned about family when you helped steal my savings. You weren't concerned about family when you insulted me." Regina tried to interrupt, but I pressed on. "I'm sorry for what you're going through, Regina. But I'm not responsible for the choices you, Caleb and Felix made. My priority is my children, and I can't expose them to the instability you've brought upon yourselves. Please don't contact us again." I ended the call and immediately blocked her number. As I put down the phone, a sense of relief washed over me. It was finally truly over.